Okay, so for the next project, I made this sand rammer out of a piece of firewood. And let me get you in here close and you can see, I'll kind of explain how it was made. There was two ends made separately. Well, actually they were made in one piece on the lathe. And then I cut these two pieces off and drilled a hole in them, finished them up, cut this wedges off, and inserted the handle into there. So, all right, let's get started and I'll show you how I made it. This is just a block of firewood that I got out of my wood pile, and it's got kind of a rectangular cross section to it, but it's big enough that I can get the heads of the rammer out of there. I can get two, one here and one here. So I'm going to cut it off right here at this line with the miter saw, and then we'll get it loaded on the lathe. I'm just going to square up this other end. Alright, I've got to get this ready to put onto the lathe, and I tried, just doing the diagonals here, but it puts my center right here, which is really too low. So what I'm going to do is measure this out to about half of it, and then about half of this. So that puts us right there, which to me looks more like it's centered up. So that gives us about 1 3/4 inches off the bottom and a little over 1.5 inches off the side. So we'll do that same thing on this end right here. Let's see, so 1 inch and well, here, let's just figure out what it is. Okay, so it's about 1 3/4 inches off the bottom. We'll go just a little bit more. Okay, let me get the spur and get it driven in there. Alright, just going to drive this down. Shaking the camera. Okay, now I get it loaded on the lathe. Alright, I've got this mounted in the lathe, and you can see I've kind of put a circle on here. What I did was, when it's not a very uniform size, so rather than try to remove all this with the chisel, I put a mark on here. I also did that on the other side, and now what that'll allow me to do is I can take a hatchet and I can kind of knock these corners off, and that'll make it easier to get this turned on the lathe, and a little bit safer too. So now I'm going to take it back off, and I'm going to do that. Alright, that's got me a little more in a rounded kind of fashion. So alright, I'll get this loaded back on the lathe. I've got my face mask on and my dust mask on, so I'll probably sound a little bit like Darth Vader. So anyway, I've got this loaded back in the lathe, and let me turn it on. You can see now it's not near as wobbly as it was. So I'm going to get my wrist adjusted, make sure we're clear, and we'll start bringing this down. All right, I'm gonna round these corners over. I'm gonna mark out where I want to cut these off. So I'm gonna round this edge a little bit. Now we'll give them a good sanding. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get these pretty much parted off. Okay, maybe I'll get them all the way parted off. Okay. All right, so I got just that little nub left right there. That's one end of it. And then this is the other end, and it's got a little nub in there. And I'll get those cleaned up. I have another piece of oak mounted in the lathe, and this is going to be the handle in the middle. So first thing I got to do, of course, is get it turned around. All right, now we are round. Now one of the tricky parts about this is I have to decide, the ends of it have to be a certain size so that because I'm going to drill the holes out in our blocks with a Forstner bit. So these have to be a certain size to fit in there. So what I'm doing right now is just figuring out how big my hand is. So I want the center part, I think, to be that big. About like that, I think. Okay. Make those darker. Get this in there a little closer. Let's speed this up a little more too. As high as speed as it goes. I'm going to put a little shoulder right here. Trying to see, I've got this set to 3/4. I'm going to try moving it out to 7/8. It looks like I can do 7/8, so I'm going to knock this down. All right, now I'm just going to put a little bit of a bevel on this. Okay, that should work pretty well. All right, let me get this back. I don't want those tenons quite as long as they look now. All right, that's got that piece done. We'll get those ends cut off. I got these two pieces done on the lathe and got our handle done. I just cut those ends off with the bandsaw, so that piece is ready to go. Next thing I'm gonna do is just sand these bits off here. This one, when I had it on the lathe, I didn't do a very good job of getting this sanded, so I'm going to do it a little bit on here on the side and see how that does. Well, this table's not set right. All right, let's try it now. Okay, that's much better. All right, next thing we got to do is figure out how we're going to cut this. We want to cut a wedge on the sides of this. All right, so I think what we're going to do is I'm going to take this center finder and mark us a line. Let's just make sure that it actually is finding something close to center. Yeah. Okay, so if I take that line right there, I think I want my end wedge to be probably as wide as this. I wonder how wide that is. Let's see. It looks like it's 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is come off of this line 3/8 and 3/8. And then lay this down. Where'd my mark go? There we go. Right there. Mark that. Switch over here. And mark that. Well, that's nowhere near close to middle. What did I do wrong? That's 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait a minute. Those aren't 8s. Okay, well, you should use a ruler that you know what you're looking at. All right, so let's try that again. Yeah, that looks more like it's in the center. See? Okay, it's kind of hard to see with all those lines there. Okay, now we need to bring these back like this. Here's what I've got set up. I've got our block C-clamped to the back fence, and it's in there pretty good. And we'll bring the blade down on it like that. I just used a square to pretty much line that up. It just has to be close because when I flip it, I'll line up the cut edge. So, all right, here we go. Just gonna go really slow. Well, okay, that went well. Do I sound a little surprised? Okay, now I'm just going to flip it over and line it back up, and now I have nothing to clamp to. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to clamp right in here. All right, let me get that set up. All right, I've got it turned around. I've got it squared up, I believe. I think we're clamped in there pretty good. We'll just go slow and see how it goes. nothing went flying. That's a good sign. Actually, you know, okay, it's not perfectly straight, but it's going to work fine. We're over here at the drill press, and I'm going to use this Forstner bit to drill the hole in the center of these. I've got the depth set already. To be about 1 inch. A little over 1 inch actually. All right, well, our tenon is just a little bit big to go in there, but I can fix that with some sandpaper later. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill this other one. I wish I had drilled this hole before I cut these sides off, so it's gonna make it a little trickier to keep it straight up and down. Oh, actually, it's not as bad as it might be. Make sure I've got the same. Need to go a little bit deeper. Yeah, that's good. All right, let's get this handle fitted. All right, we're going to use the sander to, if you look at this, the ends are bigger than the rest of it. So I'm going to sand those down a little bit, and then we'll see where we are. Well, that's still pretty tight. All right, let's get some sandpaper and we'll run this down a little bit. This is some rough sandpaper like you would, you know, do sheetrock with, and I'm just going to run these back and forth on here as I turn them. Knock a little of the diameter off. All right, let's try a rasp on here. I want to maintain this sharp shoulder right here. Okay, I think both of them are ready now. All right, so let's glue is stuck. Get a little glue in these holes. My handle is drier than these ends, so I think once we get it on there, I don't think it's going anywhere, but I just want to make sure. We'll put just a little bit on this part. All right, you're gonna start bouncing. All right, that drove home beautifully, nice and tight. All right, put a little bit on this side. We'll drive that one home. All right, there it is. That'll work right there. This will pound the flat areas, and I'll use this around the edges. Okay, so when this dries, I will just hit this with a coat of motor oil. And because, you know, working in that sand, it's just going to get more oil on it, and that'll give it a nice finish over time. I did a little sanding on these edges right here, and I'm just going to finish this with a little bit of motor oil. This is some Castrol motor oil that I've got laying around. It's let's see, 10W30, doesn't matter what it is. I'm just going to rub it in here just to kind of make an oil finish. It isn't going to get hard like linseed oil or anything like that, but this is kind of the same thing. This hammer, that's the finish that's on it. I just rubbed some motor oil into it. It cracked right here, and I wrapped it with string and then rubbed it with some motor oil, and over time it gets this dark color, mainly from the dirt where you're using it. But this is going to be used in that oil sand, so it's just going to continue to get more and more oil bathed on it. So I'm just going to kind of start out by rubbing some on here. Like I said, this is never going to dry. It's just going to soak in and sort of seal it. And I have finished quite a few hand tools this way. You know, especially things that you use when you're working on cars or motors or something like that. If they've got a wooden handle, you know, motor oil makes a good finish for them because they're just going to have motor oil all over them. So, and this is, you know, just going to get more and more oil on it from the sand. So I'm just kind of getting it started. I could have also put some lacquer on here, but the lacquer's just going to wear off. And really, I just assumed that this wood wasn't as thirsty when it encounters my oil sand. You can see that grain from that white oak right there. Really kind of seems a waste to use this pretty white oak to make this, but if it wasn't this, it was going to get burned up. So in the fireplace. Okay, so that's it. That's the final finish. It's still just a little bit wet. It'll soak in. It's not going to dry and be hard like a linseed oil or tung oil or something like that as it oxidizes, but it will soak in, and it'll actually kind of feel dry to the touch because the wetness of the oil will soak in. So that's just where some glue was smeared into it. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that project. Thank you for watching.